There is nothing wrong with your mind. It just never learned how to be still. From the moment you wake up, your mind starts moving, thinking, planning, replaying, worrying, and it doesn't stop. Even when you try to rest, it keeps going. A thought appears, then another, and another, until it feels like there is no space left, no silence, no break. And after a while, you start to believe that this is just how your mind is. That maybe you are just someone who overthinks everything. But that isn't true, because your mind was never meant to be quiet all the time. It was meant to move, just not all at once, and not without control. The problem is not that your mind thinks. The problem is that it never stops reacting to what it thinks. Every thought feels important. Every idea feels urgent. Every doubt feels like something you need to solve right now. So your mind keeps going, trying to keep up with everything it creates. And in the process, it exhausts itself. This is why you feel tired, even when you've done nothing. Why you feel overwhelmed, even when everything is fine. Why your mind feels loud, even in silence. But there is a different way to experience this. A way where your mind can still think, but not overwhelm you. A way where thoughts can come and go, without pulling you in, without taking your energy, without controlling how you feel. And it doesn't come from forcing your mind to be quiet. It comes from learning how to stop reacting to everything that appears inside it. And once you understand that, you don't need to escape your thoughts anymore. You just stop following them. Most of the time, overthinking does not look dramatic or obvious from the outside. It does not feel like panic, and it does not feel like something intense that demands attention. It feels quiet, almost invisible, like something happening in the background while everything else seems normal and unchanged. You might be sitting alone in your room, or lying in bed at night, or even going through a normal day without anything unusual happening around you. There are no major problems, no urgent situations, and nothing that requires immediate action. But inside your mind, something is always moving. A thought appears, and it seems small at first. It could be something simple, like wondering if you said the wrong thing earlier, or thinking about how a conversation might have sounded from the other person's perspective. At that moment, it does not feel serious or important. It feels like just another thought. But instead of letting it pass, your attention moves toward it. You begin to replay the situation in your mind, going over what happened and trying to understand it more clearly. You start to notice details that did not stand out before, and you begin to question things that did not seem relevant in the moment. You ask yourself why someone said something in a certain way, or whether their tone meant something different than what you first assumed. You start to analyze your own words, wondering if they could have been interpreted differently. Slowly, the situation becomes more complex than it actually was. Then another thought appears, and this one begins to shift your attention toward the future. You start imagining what might happen next, or how a similar situation could unfold later. You picture conversations that have not happened yet, and you try to predict outcomes that are still uncertain. Now your mind is moving between the past and the future at the same time. You are replaying what already happened while also imagining what could happen next. Even though nothing is actually happening in the present moment, your mind feels active and engaged, as if something important is taking place. This is where the exhaustion begins. It is not caused by the thoughts themselves, but by the constant movement of your attention. Your mind keeps shifting from one idea to another, without ever settling or slowing down. There is no pause, and there is no clear stopping point. Even when you try to rest, the movement continues. You close your eyes, but your thoughts keep going. You put your phone away, but your attention is still caught inside your head. You try to relax, but something keeps pulling you back into thinking. Over time, this starts to feel normal. You begin to believe that this is just how your mind works, and that thinking constantly is part of who you are. You might even tell yourself that you are just someone who overthinks everything, and that there is nothing you can do to change it. But what you may not realize is how much energy this pattern is using. Your focus is being directed toward things that are not happening, and your attention is being consumed by thoughts that do not require action. This constant engagement slowly drains your mental energy without you noticing it. That is why you can feel tired even when you have not done much during the day. It is why simple tasks can start to feel overwhelming, and why your mind can feel heavy even when your environment is calm. The exhaustion does not come from what you are doing, but from what your mind is constantly processing. This pattern continues because it has been repeated many times. Each time you follow a thought, you reinforce the habit of engaging with it. Over time, this becomes automatic, and your mind learns to react to everything that appears without hesitation. At that point, it no longer feels like a choice. It feels like something that just happens on its own. But when you begin to see this pattern clearly, you start to understand that the issue is not the thoughts themselves. It is the way your attention keeps following them without pause. There is a quiet shift. That changes everything. Not something dramatic, not something forceful, but something subtle that most people overlook. You don't need to stop your thoughts. You don't need to make your mind empty. You don't need to control everything that appears inside it, because that was never the point. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And most people misunderstand what that actually means. They think it means controlling their thoughts, trying to remove anything negative, trying to create a mind that is always calm, always clear, always quiet. But that kind of control doesn't exist, because thoughts are not something you create consciously. They appear on their own, without asking you, without needing permission. A memory, a question, a sudden feeling that comes out of nowhere. This is how the mind works. It produces thoughts constantly, naturally, effortlessly, and none of that is a problem. The problem begins when you start reacting to everything it produces. When every thought becomes something you need to engage with, something you need to understand, something you need to fix. And that's where the weight comes from. Not from the thoughts themselves, but from the way you relate to them. Imagine your mind like the sky, and your thoughts like clouds. They move, they change, they appear and disappear. But the sky itself remains still, untouched, open, and always there. That's what your awareness is. The part of you that can notice thoughts without becoming them, that can see them without following them. But most of the time, you don't stay as the sky. You become the clouds. You move with them. You get pulled into them. And suddenly, what was just a passing thought becomes your entire experience. This is why it feels so overwhelming. Because you're not just observing what's happening. You're inside it, living it, expanding it. But the moment you step back, even slightly, something changes. The thought is still there, but you are no longer inside it. You are watching it. And in that small shift, there is space. Space to not react. Space to not continue the loop. Space to let the thought exist without giving it control. This is what Stoicism actually points to. Not control over your thoughts, but control over your response to them. Because that is the only place where your power exists. Not in stopping the mind, but in choosing what you engage with. And once you understand that, everything becomes lighter. Not because your mind suddenly becomes quiet, but because fewer thoughts are being followed, fewer loops are being created, fewer reactions are being repeated. And over time, that changes how your mind feels. Not by force, but naturally, gradually, quietly. The way real change always happens. There is something very quiet that shapes how your mind feels. Something so subtle that you almost never notice it. And yet, It influences everything. It is where your attention goes. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a forceful way. But gently, moment by moment, your attention moves. From one thought to another. From one idea to the next. And most of the time, you don't choose where it goes. It just follows. Whatever appears. A thought comes in, and your attention moves toward it. Another thought follows, and your attention moves again. And without realizing it, your mind is being carried from one place to another. Not because something is wrong, but because nothing is guiding it. And over time, this creates a certain feeling. Restlessness. Not loud, but constant. A quiet sense that your mind is always moving, always shifting, always slightly unsettled. And the more your attention moves without awareness, the more that feeling grows. Not suddenly, but gradually, until it becomes normal, something you no longer question. But here is the part that changes everything. Your attention is not fixed. It is not something you are stuck with. It is something you can gently guide, not by force, not by trying to control every thought, but by choosing what you stay with. A thought appears, and instead of immediately following it, you notice it, and you stay where you are. You don't push it away. You don't fight it. You simply don't move with it. And in that moment, your attention remains steady, not pulled, not carried, just present. At first, this feels unfamiliar, because your mind is used to moving, used to following whatever appears. So it will try to pull you again. Another thought, another idea, another direction. But you don't have to go. You can stay right where you are, with your breath, with your body, with the quiet space around you. And slowly, that changes something inside your mind. The movement begins to slow. Not because thoughts disappear, but because your attention is no longer chasing them. And when attention stops chasing, the mind stops racing. Not completely, not instantly, but enough to feel the difference. A little more space, a little more stillness, a little less pressure to follow everything. And that is all it takes to begin. Not a complete silence, not a perfect state, just a small shift in where your attention rests. And from that, everything else starts to follow. So what does this look like in real life? When a thought appears and tries to pull your attention away from what you are doing, not as a rule that you must follow perfectly, and not as something you have to do with pressure, but as a simple pattern that you can return to whenever you notice your mind starting to drift. It begins with awareness. A thought appears, and instead of reacting immediately, you notice it. You do not need to analyze it or judge it. You simply recognize that a thought has appeared in your mind, and that recognition creates a small pause. That pause is where everything starts to change. Because most of the time, there is no pause. The thought appears, and your attention follows it instantly, without you even realizing that it happened. By the time you become aware, you are already inside the thought, continuing it. So the first step is not control. It is noticing earlier. A thought begins, and instead of moving with it, you stay where you are. You feel your breath, you feel your body, and you remain connected to the present moment rather than the direction the thought is trying to take you. You are not pushing the thought away. You are not trying to stop it. You are simply not continuing it. That is the difference. Most people believe they need to get rid of thoughts, but that effort creates more tension. The more you try to remove something from your mind, the more attention you give it, and the more it stays. Instead, you allow it to be there. You let the thought exist without reacting to it, without answering it, and without trying to resolve it. You leave it unfinished, even if your mind wants closure. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. Your mind is used to completing every thought, solving every question, and finding an answer to everything that appears. When you do not do that, it feels incomplete. But that feeling is part of the process. Because what you are changing is not the thought, but your habit of following it. Another thought may appear, and your mind may try again to pull your attention away. It may feel more urgent, or more important, as if it needs to be handled immediately. And again, you notice it. You do not fight it. You do not argue with it. You simply do not continue. You return to your breath. You return to your body. You return to what is actually happening in front of you. This is the practice. Not once, but many times. Because your mind has learned this pattern over a long period of time. And it will not change instantly. It will continue to produce thoughts, and it will continue to invite your attention. And each time, you have the same opportunity to follow it, or to stay. Every time you choose to stay, even for a brief moment, you weaken the habit of reacting automatically. You create space between the thought and your response, and that space is where your control exists. At first, that space is very small, almost unnoticeable. But with repetition, it becomes clearer. You begin to see the thought before you are inside it, and you begin to recognize the moment when your attention is about to move. That awareness changes everything. Because now you are no longer being carried by every thought. You are no longer reacting automatically to everything your mind produces. You are choosing, not by force, and not with effort, but by simply not engaging. And over time, this becomes natural. Not something you have to remember, but something that happens on its own. Your mind still produces thoughts, but you are no longer following all of them. And that is where the pressure begins to fade. Not because your mind has become silent, but because it is no longer being constantly activated by your reactions. You are still here, present, aware, and no longer pulled in every direction at once. There is a point where effort begins to soften, where trying becomes less necessary, and something quieter starts to take its place. Acceptance, not in a passive way, not as giving up, but as seeing clearly what has always been true, that your mind will produce thoughts constantly, naturally, without asking you, and that this is not a problem. For a long time, you may have believed that peace comes from fixing your thoughts, from removing doubt, from resolving everything before you can feel calm. But that path never really ends, because there is always something new to think about, something else to question, something else to figure out. And if your peace depends on solving all of that, it will always feel just out of reach. This is where acceptance changes everything, not by solving the mind, but by no longer requiring it to be solved. A thought appears, and instead of asking what it means, or what you should do about it, you allow it to be there, not because you agree with it, not because you like it, but because it doesn't need to be removed for you to feel okay. This is the shift from needing control to allowing presence, from trying to fix to simply letting things exist as they are. And when you do that, something unexpected happens. The thought loses its urgency. Its weight begins to soften. Not instantly, but naturally, because it is no longer being held in place by your resistance. And the same is true for uncertainty. You don't need to eliminate it. You don't need to predict everything that might happen. You don't need to prepare for every possible outcome. You can allow not knowing. You can allow things to unfold without needing to control them first. And in that allowance, there is a kind of calm that doesn't come from certainty, but from stability, the kind that remains even when things are unclear, even when thoughts are still appearing, even when nothing has been resolved. Because now, your peace is not based on what your mind is doing. It is based on how you relate to it. And that is something That does not need to be forced, only understood, and gently returned to, whenever you forget, and slowly, without forcing anything, something begins to change in the way your mind feels and moves from one moment to the next. Not in a sudden or dramatic way, and not in a way that transforms everything overnight, but in small, quiet shifts that are easy to miss if you are not paying attention. You start to notice a thought as it appears, and instead of being pulled into it immediately, there is a brief moment where you remain still and aware of what is happening. In that moment, nothing has to be done. You do not need to fix the thought, and you do not need to understand it completely. You simply see it, and you stay where you are. And then, just as naturally as it appeared, the thought begins to lose its intensity. Not because you pushed it away, and not because you controlled it, but because you did not continue it. This happens again. Another thought appears, and this time there is less urgency, less pressure to follow it, and less need to figure out where it is leading. You notice it, and without effort, you let it pass. At first, these moments feel small, almost insignificant, but they begin to create space inside your mind. A kind of space that was not there before. A gap between what appears and how you respond to it. And inside that gap, everything feels different. There is less tension, less noise, and less of that constant pull that used to take your attention in every direction. Your mind is still active, but it is no longer overwhelming. Thoughts are still there, but they are not stacking on top of each other in the same way. They move through more easily, without creating the same pressure that used to build over time. And as that happens, your energy begins to return. The energy that was once spent on repeating conversations, imagining outcomes, and trying to resolve every possible situation before it even happened. Now, that energy is no longer being used in the same way. It becomes available again, not in a dramatic surge, but in a steady and noticeable shift in how you feel throughout the day. You find it easier to stay focused on simple things. You notice that your attention is more stable, and that you are not being pulled away as often as before. Even when thoughts appear, they do not take you as far from the present moment. You remain closer to where you are. And that changes the way you experience everything. Conversations feel lighter, because you are not carrying them long after they end. Decisions feel clearer, because you are not stuck in the same loops of doubt and hesitation. Even moments of silence begin to feel different, not empty or uncomfortable, but calm and steady in a way that feels natural. You are still aware of your thoughts, but you are no longer inside all of them. You are not being carried by every idea, every memory, or every possibility that appears. You are here, present, grounded in what is actually happening. And there is a kind of quiet confidence in that. Not loud, and not something that needs to be shown to others, but something that you feel within yourself. A sense that your mind is no longer working against you, and that you are no longer reacting to everything it produces. And once you experience that, even for a short moment, it becomes easier to return to it again. Not perfectly, and not all the time, but often enough to notice that something has changed. And that change does not come from controlling your mind, but from no longer following it everywhere it goes. There is nothing you need to force. Nothing you need to rush. Nothing you need to fix. All at once. Your mind does not need to become perfect for you to feel at peace. It doesn't need to be empty. It doesn't need to be silent all the time. It just needs a little less reaction, a little more space, a little more understanding of how it works. Because the moment you stop trying to control everything, something softer begins to take its place. You start to allow what is already there. Thoughts come, and you let them be. Feelings rise, and you don't push them away. Uncertainty appears, and you don't rush to resolve it, not because you don't care, but because you no longer believe that everything needs your immediate response. And in that space, your mind begins to settle naturally, without pressure, without effort. The noise fades, not because it was forced to, but because it was no longer being fed. And what remains is something simple, a quiet awareness, a steady presence, the feeling of being here, without being pulled in every direction. And from that place, life feels different, not because everything changes, but because your relationship with it does. You move through your day with a little more ease, a little less resistance, a little more space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space, there is freedom, not the kind that comes from controlling life, but the kind that comes from no longer being controlled by every thought. So the next time your mind begins to move, you don't have to stop it. You don't have to follow it. You can simply notice and stay right where you are, breathing, present, unmoved. And over time, that becomes familiar. Not something you try to do, but something you return to without thinking. A quiet place that was always there, beneath all the noise, beneath all the movement, waiting, not to be created, but to be remembered.